Subscribe to Audio Novels for more content and click on the bell icon. We hope you enjoy the video. Thank you.
100 million. I'll buy her. A low voice echoed in the underground room. The noisy auction house, which was boisterous just a moment ago, suddenly became quiet. I forced my lowered head upward and looked at the person who just spoke. My eyesight was blurry because I was drugged. I wanted to see who bought me, but my vision kept getting worse. Oh, 100 million. Does anyone have a higher bid? 100 million for this foreign woman. But it is the host shouted with excitement. However, only silence flowed throughout the hall. It's an overwhelming amount. That was a considerable sum of money just to spend on a single slave. A fascinating flame burned within her silver eyes. She had covetous red hair that, when washed, shined like a rose submerged in dew. Even if she was stuck in a dusty pit, her beauty could not be obscured. Indeed, she had such an unrivaled, rare beauty that was difficult to find, but to pay such an exorbitant amount of money? Does he like that girl enough to spend such an amount? Or do they know each other? Who is this man that can pay such a large sum? The burning gazes were only directed toward one place. A man who was slowly walking down the stairs and heading up toward the stage. I couldn't see his face because he was wearing a mask and a hood. But I had a vague idea who he was. I just could not believe it. Is there anyone else who wants to bid? If there's no one, then sold for a bid of 100 million gautis. The host's announcement of the winning bid buzzed all around, as if echoing from somewhere far away. I looked up at the man who seemed to have drawn the light to himself, even in this dark basement. Dazzling blonde hair and emotionless blue-gray eyes visible through his mask, the man's presence was overwhelming. No one dared to say who he was, but everyone already knew the name of this daunting presence. Of course, I knew it too. This is one of the scenes in the book. It's terrible. He stood before me and clicked his tongue. Then he put a cloak over my shoulders, which were exposed directly to the light, covering them and my injured arms. I squeezed the light warmth with my trembling hands. His somewhat kind gesture was the reason why Villainess No. 4 became enamored with the male protagonist. But I knew his behavior was nothing more than meaningless sympathy. I was grateful that I could now avoid the harsh gazes a little, but that's it. She's mine now, so I will take her right away. Yes? Yes, oh, of course. Another man wearing a mask completely covering his face rushed to pay the balance as if he was the man's servant. I seemed to be the only sane one among the stupefied crowd watching everything unfold in a daze. I stared furiously, instead of looking fondly or solemnly at the man who became my master. I'm grateful, but that is all. The whole situation was not scary at all because of my blurred vision, which for now became my only defense against the current predicament. This expensive buying, ordering, he already removed her gag. Nevertheless, my tongue felt stiff and words refused to come out properly. This was due to the drug that the traffickers forced me to inhale. Then the man who held me laughed. Go to sleep. When you open your eyes, you will be far away from this place. A voice that's low enough only for me to hear. Contrary to the cold yet kind tone, his face, which was the last thing I saw, was cold as ice. Then, I finally fainted. It's been a week since I possessed this body. My whole world had been filled with darkness. Feeling the morning sun, I came back to my senses. It's ticklish and soft. Feeling uncomfortable, I opened my eyes and pulled myself up. Where am I? My hands were finally free after a long time. I lifted the blanket, just in case, but there was no chain on my ankle either. Looking around, I could see emerald wallpaper, matched with white furniture. Plus, the curtains had frills. It was a place that looked expensive at a glance. It was not something that Villainous No. 4, who was poor, miserable, and had nothing but evil intentions, could enjoy. Oh, you're up. What? She is awake, finally? Suddenly, the door creaked open, and a gray-haired old man appeared. Afterwards, a man with a huge build and slanted eyes came in with a thud. Startled by their unannounced entrance, I jumped out of bed and stood alert. At this time, my arms, which were really only bones, did not have any strength left. However, I had to do something while being threatened. Oh, don't do that, my lady. There's nothing to be wary of. Maynard is right. My name is Theobald, the butler of this mansion. I didn't know you were awake. I'm only here to bring you some items. I'm sorry for surprising you, my lady. The old man, Theobald, supported the words of the man who looked like a bandit. But I wasn't so stupid to let my guard down. This world is a cruel place for women. I saw the questioning looks on their faces, but I focused only on searching for an opportunity to escape from this room. I was free from slavery, yet this was another crisis. I don't know how they would treat me so far. I had to stay alert. These are the indoor clothes you're going to change into. I'll hang them here in the closet. The old butler, Theobald, moved slowly. I didn't miss any of his movements, while also paying attention to the man named Maynard. Just like a fool, I stood there and heard the birds chirping outside. The breeze penetrated through the open window, blowing at my still entangled and dirty hair. I nervously moved the hair that hindered my view, then leaned closer toward the window. You can't relax. You can't let your guard down. Maybe I look like a wounded wild cat now. Maynard gazed at my face and unconsciously breathed in. This body's face must be pretty as described numerous times in the original story. This is the Archduchy of Schweiden. It's neither a dangerous place nor will it harm you, my lady. The butler stomped on Maynard's foot. Then he opened his mouth and spoke with an appeasing tone. I laid my fingers on the window and asked gently, "How long have I been here?" A gruff and hoarse voice came out, as if it wasn't my own. I must have been asleep for a long time. 4 days. I was worried because you seemed to be very tired and couldn't be awakened this whole time. 4 days. It must have been because of the potent drugs. Even I, who prided myself for having a strong mentality, collapsed helplessly. I held myself back from cursing and instead reached out my hand. "Paper and pen. Over there? Bring it." As I pointed with my chin, Maynard took a step hesitantly, and when he tried to get close to me, I immediately became alert. "There, put it down at your feet. So fussy, my lady." "Shut up. No one can be trusted. I may look naive, but I know who they are. Trust me." I reached out my hand without bending my head down and quickly grabbed the pen and paper. My wrists, which had been tied for a long time, did not move as I desired, but it's not a problem. They didn't stop me, because they didn't know what I was trying to do. So now is my opportunity when they didn't know anything about me yet. I have to run. Schweiden's Archduchy. That's when everything became clear. This was the residence of the male protagonist. I can't get involved. I knew well what would happen to villainous Noper 4, who would do bad things while being next to the male lead. I'm going to die. It was so terrible that the color drained from my whole body. My hands moved incredibly fast as I imagined myself meeting that end. The line I drew on the white paper soon illustrated a crooked bird. I threw it at the wind, opened the window, and jumped right away. "My lady," I heard a surprised cry from behind, but I didn't look back. It's the outside that I've been longing for. The air without the smell of sleeping candles was tremendously refreshing. Yeah, I'll fly like this and run. I refuse to live as the time-limited villainous Noper 4. "My lady, it's dangerous." Maynard and the butler who saw me widened their eyes. It must have been a shocking sight. I'm now riding a bird that emerged from the piece of paper I drew on. However, the bird quickly lost its strength and I fell to the ground. Wow, this works. In the midst of everything, I was impressed with myself. Although I thought it wouldn't work, I still risked my life with the stunt. I guess this is really not the same world I used to know. My knees hurt as soon as I ran after landing abruptly. Since I had been held captive for a long time, my joints failed to function properly. I need to draw a vehicle before I get caught. Fortunately, there was still some paper left. But before I could even move my hand, I ended up bumping into someone standing in front of me. Ack, this? Is it a rock? A tree? Either way, I felt my head ache. I held on to my red forehead and barely raised my head. This person? Were you a painting wizard? The voice that touched my ears was cold, but his resonating deep voice sounded great. The light shining behind him shaded his face. However, I could recognize him from his angular chin and firm mouth. Some time later, blue-gray eyes bearing coldness entered my line of sight. Light blonde hair and a high nose bridge. Sun-kissed skin, unique to those who wield a sword. That man, who was as terribly handsome as the chariot-driving god of the sun, was the male lead. The man who wrapped his hand around my waist to prevent me from escaping soon grinned. I guess $100 million was a really cheap price. Yeah, that's right. I'm fucked. It was while I was in that filthy, shabby wooden chest that I vaguely realized I possessed the body of a character from a novel. I was stuck in a chest and was being carried away like cargo. How should I explain the fear that I felt at that time? I wanted to scream, but every part of my body was paralyzed, the same with my vocal cords. All I was able to do was inhale and exhale like being in a coma. Fortunately, my hearing was fine. Even though I couldn't see well, I was able to grasp my situation after 2 days. Hey, be careful. This has the finest slave in it. What? Then you should have marked it correctly. It says top-class slave here. You fool. What? How many of them did we kidnap? Did you check them all out? I picked up the sounds from outside through the small holes drilled for breathing. They seemed to be human traffickers. But I just fell asleep after reading a popular novel. Why did this happen to me? It was so horrifying and ridiculous that my mind slowly cleared. However, no matter how hard I thought about it, the worst thing I had ever done in my life was shave off all of my ex-boyfriend's hair. Oh, of course, without using shaving cream. My ex-boyfriend woke up and went home crying, while I laughed rolling around on the floor from joy when I saw him. Ah, is that it? Is this karma? Tears welled up in fury as my thoughts reached that point. Fortunately, my mother raised her child to be strong, and I also knew how to say spare me. My family has a lot of money in 17 languages. To be honest, I was just a normal citizen, but my mom still promised that if I got kidnapped, she would prepare a ransom. Of course, she would pay them back in installments over 80 years' worth of time after I'm released. In any case, my mom would never give up on me. I am sure she will come to save me, so I just have to survive until then. That's what I thought until I heard their next line. It's such a waste to sell them. Girls found over in the desert are usually hot. Don't touch her. There's a rumor that the prince will attend this auction in person, and if we can sell her, we'll make a fortune. Desert, auction, prince. Is it a code? Where? I've heard of it, or should I say, I have seen it somewhere before. Let's think. If that's a clue, I have to think about it. Where the hell did I see it? And not just the prince, but also the god of the sun's descendant. He might come too, so let's keep the goods safe. With my eyes wide open, I filtered out their uselessly disparaging words and tried to focus only on key information. God of the sun's descendant? God of the sun's descendant. Damn it! No way! That's it! The title of the book I was reading before I went to bed was The Blood Descendant of the God of the Sun and the Wedding's Main Character. And the God of the Sun's descendant was the male lead. I preferred the villain's side more than the female lead side, which was portrayed with fierceness. Especially villainous No. 4 with a deep and tragic backstory who was my favorite. But no, wait, I never said I wanted to be her. It felt a little unfair. The book was quite popular, so there were probably thousands of people who read it. So why did it have to be me? I even only got through less than halfway of the story. I was so disappointed over the ending of my favorite character, Villainous No. 4, who was found dead in prison, that I just slept after reaching that part. Why the hell? I asked myself that, but got no answer. And soon the scent of sleeping candles spread, and my consciousness drifted somewhere far away. When I opened my eyes again, I was already in the auction house. Phew, I guess it's still better to be Villainous No. 4, right? Villainous No. 4, Shay. She was the one who hung on to the male lead more desperately than anyone else. She hated the original female lead who always stood by the male lead. In the end, she became the villain who stayed still as she watched the original female lead fall off a cliff. And so, after witnessing the whole situation, the male protagonist ended up imprisoning Villainous No. 4. Then, without even receiving a trial, she met a terrible death. It was true that Villainous No. 4 did evil things, but she was actually falsely accused of the crime of pushing the female lead. Unfortunately, she stupidly got entangled in Villainous No. 1's trap. The role of Villainous No. 4 had to be the most pitiful because she was hated by the other 3 villainesses. Therefore, it was only natural that she had such an ending. And the reason why Villainous No. 4 was hated so much was because she was pretty. She wasn't just pretty, but undeniably pretty. It's an anachronistic and old-fashioned reason. Normally, if someone is pretty, you would want to be close with them. So why did all of the characters want to kill her? All the villainesses had their own charms, but villainess Noba 4 was a particular character with fatal charm. I was absolutely amazed by the descriptions that emphasized her extremely fatal beauty, reading them over and over again. How can a woman like this exist? She can seduce any man just by batting her eyelashes? How? As soon as I thought about it, I remembered the author of the book. The author used otherworldly exaggerations several times to contest that villainess Noba 4 was extremely beautiful. I was actually quite excited, even though I thought it was ridiculous and waited for villainous Noba 4's appearance. And now I can see why villainous Noba 4 was treated like a devilish woman. This is crazy. Before I had a proper conversation with the man who bought me Archduke Schweiden, I was forced to bathe first. I stood in front of the mirror with water dripping down my hair and screamed, "Honey, take me!" Thump! I hit my forehead on the mirror, causing it to ache. I couldn't hide my big smile as I gazed at the face before me. Pretty. In layman's terms, fucking pretty. That's good enough to describe it. Well, it's acceptable. The red hair, now rid of dirt, looks as fresh as if it was made of rose petals. Fox-like long eyes, lush eyelashes, and jade-white skin. A slight rise of the corners of her mouth would make anyone want to stare. On top of that, her body is perfect. I barely managed to grasp my quivering rationality as I examined my body. Villainous Noba 4 wasn't a delicate woman who looked like she'd break at a single tap. Instead, she was a healthy beauty, like a mare. It's the sexy big sister type. I'm skinny maybe because I haven't been eating much now, but even if I gain a little weight, I'll still have a very sensual vibe. I was sure I would. Oh my God, this is me. This is me? Humans are normally vain, so I forgot the situation for a moment and almost cried out, hooray, for possessing this body. Her silver eyes with a bluish tint shimmered enchantingly. The collarbone, one of the most beautiful I had ever seen, had a flat and straight shape as if sculpted. In addition to her great beauty, she even had a secret lineage belonging to the painting wizard. So why is villainous Noba 4 not the heroine? I sighed for a moment at this world who pushed a weak and innocent woman to be the female lead. If the owner of this body was the female lead, I'm sure the plot would be quite interesting and fun without frustrating situations. My lady, the Archduke wants to have a meal with you downstairs. At that time, I heard a voice that pulled my soul, which had escaped far away, back to my body. It was Theobald, the butler. I see. The butler was the one who placed indoor clothes in the closet earlier. After being calmed down to some extent, I just went out and chose not to speak informally. After all, the butler was a grandpa. Because of my K-blood embedded in my memories, I found it unacceptable to use informal speech to him, unlike the nobles in the book. Plus, I don't know whether or not villainous Noba 4's real identity was that of a noble. If these people were bad guys, the story would be different, but so far, they didn't do anything suspicious. At the least, I believed they wouldn't do anything to me. While washing, I remained alert and tried to sense any movement outside, but I didn't hear anyone's footsteps. This beauty can make men and women go crazy regardless of their age, but seeing that they didn't. The people in this mansion seemed to be people, not dogs. I pulled my hair back and stepped away from the mirror. I guess you've calmed down a bit now. After a while, I went down to the dining room and saw him reading a newspaper. Come to think of it, this world seems like a mix of the Middle Ages, when knights rode horses while wielding their swords, and an industrialized period when trains already exist. You're dating a beautiful woman, Archduke Schweiden? I'm sure the Archduke Schweiden mentioned was him, but if I remember correctly, the novel only has one female lead. It's Wembu. Wembu. A collection of useless rumors or unconfirmed information. Oh, gossips. He then cut the topic off with a displeased expression, so I decided to let it go. As soon as I sat down, Maynard tramped in and brought the tableware. Then he took one glance at my face and disappeared. Blushing down to his neck. Oh, good. Innocent. Very innocent. Listen. It's a watery clam soup, so it'll be easy to swallow. It's good. No, the food was great. The soup has a deep, creamy flavor that moistens the tongue. Tasting this, I think they call it clam chowder, because this was my first meal since I possessed this body. I barely held myself back from scarfing it all down at once. If I end up with an upset stomach, I'll just suffer. At least, that much rationality was still with me. It'd be better to introduce myself first. My name is Lassius de Schweden. Mid-meal, the silent man suddenly opened his mouth. Of course, I already knew his name. While reading the book, I always thought that the name fits his character well. Shay, I answered a little coyly. He didn't point out my way of speaking. Instead, he gently wiped his mouth with a napkin and asked, "How did you get caught?" I almost submerged my nose into the dish just so I could buy some time before I answered. So what was the setting for Villainous Number 4 again? Villainous Number 4 was born in a small magical kingdom called the Edmund Kingdom with an incredibly rare bloodline known as the Painting Wizard. They possess a magical ability that allows a drawing to become reality, and this power could only be transferred from the parents to their children. So, it's the miracle of 2D becoming 4D. If you drew pictures of hundreds of billions of gautis, it could actually turn into real money. Of course, one would quickly find out that money is counterfeit because of the issuance number printed on each gold coin, so no one would actually perform such a stupid act, but from a theoretical point of view, this was a plausible scenario. In addition, there are endless kinds of things that one can create besides money. There was no limit to a painting wizard's power, so naturally a lot of powerful people covet them. That's why painting wizards desperately hide their identities. If caught, you would be confined and be made to constantly paint. Eventually, you'll end up being forced to bear a child. The better ending would be just to bite your tongue off and die. I got caught. I'm a painting wizard. After organizing my thoughts, I replied with a low voice. Then, Archduke Schweiden nodded his head as if signaling he understood. You must have been chased. I ran to the desert, but I didn't have any paper or pen. Oh, there was such a restriction. Magic by painting means that there should be paper, no matter how cheap it is. It didn't matter whether you used a pen, brush, or charcoal, but there should be paper, cloth, or canvas. And I survived such a predicament. I internally praised myself for my excellent summarization of Villainous Number 4's past, and then turned my attention to the fresh salad. So you currently have nowhere to go back to, right? Archduke Schweden asked in a low voice when I pulled the whole bowl in front of me. He used such a subtle tone that I raised my eyebrows and stared at him questioningly. I'm planning to leave as soon as I get better, so why are you asking? I'm scared. The sun seeped through the wide window and lightly touched his blonde hair. A strange light flashed through his icy blue-gray eyes, then he opened his mouth again. If you have nowhere to go, you may stay here for a while. Oh, this was a scene from my recollection of Villainous Number 4 in the original story. I searched my memory for his next line and recited it in my mind. I want you to testify against the criminals involved in the slave auction house. When the testimony is over, I will send you wherever you want to go. It was perfectly delivered with a stiff and businesslike tone. It really happened exactly like the description from the original. Lassius's eyes were dead cold. That aspect matched his appearance and made him look even more attractive. However, the Lassius whom I saw in person seemed exhausted, which wasn't included in the description. Well, good. I also need to recuperate anyway. Okay. At the end of the conversation, Lassius quickly left the dining room. It was obvious he didn't want to talk to me any longer, but I didn't feel offended because I knew Lassius detested attention. The male lead of this work has been stalked for almost his whole life. That's why he hated it when someone looked at him or talked to him for an extended period of time. The female protagonist in the original was the only person that such a male protagonist kept in his heart. Looking at your face for a long time is also annoying to me. I waited for the butler, staring blankly at the direction where Lassius went off. Oh, he already left. Soon after, the butler returned with a paper and a pen. I took it, wrote a brief statement, and asked a subtle question. By the way, butler, I have a question. Yes? What kind of job makes a lot of money here? Pardon? Money. I want to know the quickest and most non-illegal way to rake in a lot of money. The butler's eyes widened, but I was firm. I have to make a living. I've no desire to be poor even here. I'm going to be rich. My whole body, with my fists clenched, overflowed with determination. I told her that becoming a leader of industry, establishing a clothing brand to sell clothes specially to noblewomen, or building entertainment facilities are the best ways to make money. Money. Yes, she seems to really like money. Crackle, crackle. Even today, bundles of letters and gifts slowly burned to ashes in the fireplace. Lassius looked at them with emotionless eyes as he received Theobald's report. So what's your judgment? Do you think she's reliable? Pardon my frankness, but she didn't walk around at night looking for your bedroom. What about my hair? I've never seen her bend her back to search for any. Other than that, she didn't seem to be particularly interested in your highness, rather some money. She only wants money? Yes, that seems to be the case. If this is true, then it's good news. Maybe this time. Hope flashed through Lassius's dead eyes as he stared at the awful objects in the fireplace. Really, hair dolls keep on coming without a hitch. It's because of the magazines spreading that superstition. Piles of dolls made by young ladies by cutting their own hair and stuffing it inside were being burned, dispersing a noxious smell. He didn't care about what they did, but the superstition that love can be achieved only when his hair was put together with theirs was the problem. And that was already 3 years ago. He can't believe these are still being sent to the mansion. Schweiden does not accept any mail except for those coming directly from the imperial family. This was the work of wizards, hired personally by those ladies to connect the space and throw them in here. They don't know that this was a form of harassment to the recipient. It would be easier if money could buy a fake relationship. Would 10 billion goddess be enough? I think it will be enough. I hope she doesn't fall for me. Test it. Test it, you say. Yes, she's from a foreign country, so maybe she won't be affected by your highness. At Theobald's suggestion, Lassius quietly pondered with an expressionless face. Theobald had a point. The woman who identified herself as Shay is clearly different from the young ladies he had met so far, but he still wasn't sure. There used to be a woman who insisted she had no feelings for him, but the results were always the same. An irrational obsession with him. Life is bound to be led by the sun, so it's something that happens naturally. He had the blood of the god of the sun. Life is mostly driven by light. Therefore, his family was born with the fate that was bound to be loved by many people. It's obvious that by people, meaning the opposite sex. Unlike his predecessors, the public interest in him only grew stronger and stronger as the days went by. After his father passed away and he ascended as the Archduke, it became impossible for him to have a comfortable daily life at all. Perhaps it was due to not getting married sooner. I don't want to get married without love, so I've been delaying it, but it seems like it only exacerbated the problem. I don't think it's wrong. Theobald always took his side attentively, even in his self-mocking remarks. Lassius sighed and nodded his head. It wouldn't be bad to think of this as the last time and try it out. Who knows? We may even find a madam. You're overly optimistic. Even so, it could still be a defense, so you won't get linked to Lady Chrysiona anymore. Lassius frowned at the butler's calm words. Yes, there was also that problem. One of the two duchy aside from the archduchy. The duke's daughter, Chrysiona, didn't love him. However, she embodied a larger problem, since she treated him like a decorative trophy. The lady had consistently argued that it was her right to marry him. Even if he refused, his words would only briefly hold her off. After all, Lassius so far had just barely prevented her efforts by going to war whenever the talk of marriage came up. However, this was only a stopgap measure, a method that would be ineffective in the future, since the gentle emperor doesn't want war anymore. Oh, right, I have something to tell you. What is it? The lady is in the bathroom. Theobald winked. Lassius then nodded with a dim look. Although I'm reluctant. He couldn't help it anymore. I was lying in bed until late afternoon with the sun already setting outside the window. Maybe it's because I had been stuck in that narrow, dirty place that I'm feeling so tired right now. In fact, I could have slept for a full 48 hours, but I wanted to take a bath. I thought the bath products here would be bad, but somehow the natural products found within this world inside a book were surprisingly pretty decent. I happily washed myself in the sweet, sour, lemon and strawberry scent to the point that I wanted to bathe again. Should I wash up or not? After much agony, I walked slowly toward the bathroom only after darkness fell. However, I was too lazy to lift my hand, so I laid myself down in the bathtub. It wasn't me who would be moving anyway. Come out. Come on. As I waved the paper while shouting insincerely, the scribbles I made last night popped out. These were the bubble fairies I drew last night. Can you wash me? The fairies with soft bubbles on their heads wore small sponges on their hands. Shaking their wings, some started to wash my head while others rubbed my shoulders. It felt so good that I couldn't help myself from moaning, "Oh." As I curled my toes in comfort, I decided to reflect upon everything that happened today. Making money in this world and in reality are not much different. Well, this was written by a real person, so it made sense. There is that unique position of a person becoming the leader of an industry, but I don't want to try that. Launching a luxury clothing brand. This was honestly what I wanted to do. Though, since I can't make clothes, naturally I would need a designer. The only person I could think of that would fit the bill was an extra from the original. I think it'll work, but let's just think some more about it. After crossing off those two ideas, the only thing left was the entertainment industry. But the business of selling alcohol or owning a bar was not appealing at all. Is there anything more wholesome to make a profit off of in the entertainment industry other than that? No one dislikes having fun. Excited for some reason, I pushed back a few strands of hair that had fallen down on my white breasts, helping the fairies wash me well. As I, the caster, was in a good mood, the fairies moved as if they were in a good mood too. I closed my eyes and pondered only about exciting thoughts while enjoying the sensation of the water's warmth. To be honest, isn't my adaptability in the top 0.1? The top 0.1% distinction means you are in the top number of people. Even though everything in my life changed all of a sudden, I didn't shed a single tear. Goodbye, germs. Goodbye, semi-underground apartment. I tried to forget that I might not be able to go back home or that I might not be able to meet my family again forever. I am now living in such a luxurious place that I couldn't even dream of in the first place. A 5-star hotel, which I've never been to, would probably look like this. I can't believe I'm enjoying such a place without paying any money. My mind and body felt so ecstatic. I don't want to go back to a life where I'm still paying back student loans, even though it had already been a while since I graduated. To be honest, if we compare this to real life, wouldn't 98 out of 100 people choose this route? Besides, I can earn a lot of money too. I want to run my own business. Looking at the children from well-off families, their fathers were often businessmen. What business? What kind of business? They used to joke around about things that were difficult to name, and I couldn't join such conversations because I didn't know what they were talking about. My father was a firefighter, which of course I was very proud of, but compared to leading an honorable life, our life had always been poor. Perhaps that's why I dreamt of becoming a businesswoman. I didn't have money for that, but I still dreamt. At this time, "Shay, is everything okay inside?" I heard Lassius's voice outside the door. I opened my eyes wide and checked the watch I brought next to me. I thought it had only been about 10 minutes, but it's already been an hour. Lassius may have become worried, that's why he came to visit me. "Yes, I'm fine. I'll be out in a minute." I raised myself up after checking whether I had a fever or not after touching my forehead. The bubble fairies washed all the foam off my head, so I thought I just needed to rinse my body one more time. But a problem occurred just then. Click. The sound of the door I had locked unlocking pierced my ears. Bubble fairies prank. The door opened wide. In front of it, of course, stood Lassius, who had yet to leave. "Aha! Ah!" At the moment Lassius and I made eye contact, I laughed super awkwardly. In a hot bathroom filled with steam, a completely naked woman stood without a robe while a man was outside the door. It's a perfect scene for someone to misunderstand. I may have taken my clothes off on my own, but this doesn't mean anything else. How should I fix this? Should I stride out and close the door? Just saying, this was the fairies doing, would only sound like a lame excuse. Usually, when faced with such a situation, the man was the one who says sorry, but here I think I should be the one kneeling. "Oh, I'm sorry for showing you such a scene." A scene. My apology echoed and came back. I didn't see anything. After 1,000 years of silence, I decided to open my mouth again, but Lassius beat me to it. Keep washing. I'm sorry I came. Huh? He's being quite broad-minded. If I were him, I would surely beat myself to death once I came out of the bathroom, labeling myself as a pervert and a stalker. However, in this situation, I am the person who would be beaten, so I decided to just close my mouth nicely. Lacius's neck and ears had already turned red, as if he had been steamed all the way to the top of his head. You guys really... After Lacius disappeared in large strides, I jerked my head and stared into the bathroom. Amazingly, no one was there. The effects of the magic almost ran out, and since it almost ended, everyone turned into blurred lines. Wow, I'm dying to beat them up. I didn't know that playing around while drawing would lead to such an embarrassing result. After swearing to draw seriously and respectfully like a scholar in the future, I quickly rinsed the remaining bubbles off my body. Ah! How would I be able to look at Lacius's face now? A red alarm rang in my head. This was certainly a situation that anyone would misunderstand. Oh no, my splendid future. Here I thought I'd finally found a way to live well and eat well.